What is going on, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to offer a rave review for the new film Animal, a movie which I'd not even heard of until a couple days ago. So if you've not heard of it, not to worry. I'm going to tell you all that you need to know. But how to make the pitch or how to make the case for Animal, because this is an Indian Hindi language action drama film with a hell of a lot of music. It is 3 hours long, and I'm sure most American viewers are like, what are you talking about? And I get it. I'm no expert in Indian movies whatsoever. I saw RRR last year, and up until that time, I wasn't even aware that there are like several rival film industries all within the country of India, which makes sense. There are more than 1 billion people living there, but like we think of America as like a monoculture when it comes to producing movies. We have Hollywood, but they have multiple film industries. So I'm not quite sure which market Animal's designed to appeal to, but it's directed and edited by Sandeep Reddy Vanga, a filmmaker that I will be following very closely from now on, because I don't know if I've had more fun watching a movie this year. Like, there are movies that I might like better or respect more, but in terms of like pure balls to the wall violence and melodrama and beautiful women and just like all the ingredients you want if you're going to pay money for a 3-hour kind of piece of escapist entertainment, all those ingredients are there, but they're all kind of cranked up to 11 or 12 or whatever your internal highest ranking might be for high-octane cinema. High-octane cinema, I think, is the only way I can describe this, because it is so violent and so grotesque in so many ways, but so stylish and so exhilarating, because when you're watching a lot of people getting mowed down or like, chopped to pieces with axes and that sort of thing, it helps the violence go down if you have a bunch of really sharp-looking dudes in suits singing songs and stamping their feet. I mean, everything I say about this movie, at least to an American audience, is going to make it sound totally ridiculous, but the movie is delivered with so much sincerity and it's so true to its own vision that it'll win you over pretty quickly. I mean, I sat down, did not really know what to expect. And for the first 5 or 10 minutes, I was like, what is this movie? Like, what the hell is even going on here? But then the central character started to talk and tell stories and get in violent altercations and do all sorts of things that were deliriously entertaining. I was like, all right, well, no matter where this character goes, I'm on the hook from now on. And I don't think there's a single scene in the entire movie where he's absent. And I don't even know if I can review this movie or discuss this movie without giving away shitloads of spoilers. So before I go any further, let me just say, this movie is wildly entertaining. It's melodramatic. It is over the top. It is stylish. It's a hell of a good time at the movies. It's 3.5 hours of like screaming arguments and or shootouts and wild tunes with some of the most like charismatic and beautiful and well-dressed people that you've ever seen. It was a damn good time at the movies, and it's definitely going to be in my top 10 of the year, maybe even in my top 5, but I absolutely loved it. But with all that out of the way, let's get into some spoilers. So let me give you some of the vital stats from Wikipedia, and I do apologize in advance. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of a lot of these names, but it all comes from a place of love. I just want people to know who these people are. But Animal is a 2023 Indian Hindi language action drama film directed and edited by Sandeep Reddy Vanga, who co-wrote the screenplay with Pranay Reddy Vanga and Saurabh Gupta from the story by himself. The film stars Ranbir Kapoor, Anil Kapoor, Bobby Deol, Rashmika Mandana, and Tripti Dimri. In the film, Ranjiv Vijay Singh learns about an assassination attempt on his father, Balbir Singh, Bahak, and his brothers, where he sets out to extract revenge. And according to the stats here, already Animal has emerged as the 6th highest grossing Indian film of 2023, 4th highest grossing Hindi film of 2023, 20th highest grossing Indian film, and highest grossing adults-only rated Indian film of all time. I find that last bit most interesting, that they have a category for adults only, and there's no sex and there's no nudity in this. I mean, there's implied sex and it's implied nudity, but you don't see it on screen. It's a very sexy movie, but not a sexual movie. But it's getting an A rating for violence, and it's well-deserved. I cannot emphasize this enough. The bloodshed due to weapons and fists and gunplay is truly next level. The biggest goddamn Gatling gun in the history of cinema. It's not even it's like a Gatling vehicle/cannon with like Gatling guns on the side. Anyway, there's one scene where I can only describe the scene as like syrupy. It's so bloody and so grotesque and so over the top, you kind of lose track of like, are we swimming in a pool of blood or is this just limbs flying in all directions? But anyway, that A rating was well deserved, but I'm thrilled to see that there's an audience for this kind of movie. And I know that sometimes on this channel I place too much of a heavy emphasis on the appeal of sex and violence, but the only reason I kind of overstate the case sometimes on that front is that I can detect such a movement in the opposite direction. And it's a movement that I'm absolutely disgusted by, because they don't just want to avoid sex and violence in movies. They want to deprive other people from seeing it as well. It's like, no. Nobody gets to watch this. I'm like, fuck you. Like, don't watch what you don't want to watch and let the rest of us have a good time watching movies like Animal. And I guarantee you are going to have a great fucking time if you throw down some cash to go see this, because Ranbir Kapoor, who plays Ranvir Singh, the central character, he's so fucking charismatic and such a badass and such a stud, and he exudes such masculine energy. Like, you can almost kind of smell the body odor coming off the screen. But like, people these days always talk about like BDE, aka big dick energy. All I'll say about this actor is that he probably has to stuff his in his very expensive looking boots, because this guy, he's just got a smoldering intensity. He's completely shredded. He's got this big ass beard, crazy hair. And every time he says or does anything, there's like an electric guitar that's like you get here like distortion. It's like just to make sure that we're paying attention, or that we're getting that he's saying some really heavy shit. But yeah, the musical accompaniment to this movie is just fucking awesome. So how can I describe the character played by Ranbir Kapoor? Also, quick question, what is his relationship to Anil Kapoor? Americans will be familiar with Anil Kapoor from movies like Slumdog Millionaire, but I'm reading here under Ranbir Kapoor's IMDb bio that he basically belongs to the first family of Bollywood, or the Hindi film industry, that there are a lot of Kapoors, and that I think he's a fourth generation Kapoor in the movie biz. I'm not quite sure if he's of blood relation to Anil or not. But Anil plays his father, who's basically the most powerful and most wealthy individual in all of India. They create steel for roads, and they're connecting countries, and he's an incredibly powerful industrialist. He has a lot of enemies, many of whom have criminal enterprises, so they're constantly surrounded by guns and bodyguards. It's just a crazy environment in which to grow up. But the character played by Ranbir Kapoor, the hero of the movie, Ranvir Singh, all he wants is to make his father happy. He wants his father's approval. He wants his father's attention. But his father basically has less than 10 seconds per day to give to his children. And so this character, he grows up with a lot of daddy issues. And like I said, he wants to impress him. And his way of impressing him is basically by being the brother or the son or the father to his own children that his father was never able to be. Meaning, like, if his sisters get made fun of at school, well, he's going to show up with guns to put those guys in their place. Or if somebody tries to assassinate his father, well, then he will burn the entire world to the ground trying to hunt down his father's enemies. Like, he is the enforcer. He is the bulldog or the pit bull that when you let him off his chain, Jesus fucking Christ, it's really, really hard to get that chain and that collar back on him. But from his own point of view, like, it all comes from a place of just overflowing love. And it makes him just this absolutely fascinating character, because he's ruled by his passions while at the same time he's very clear and very ruthless as like a cunning businessman. And the movie is just constantly like a pendulum swinging back and forth between all these extreme emotions, because you'll have these scenes where he's just on like a murderous rampage, ripping people to pieces. And then there'll be another scene where it's like the most romantic scene you could ever imagine, where he'll fly away with his bride-to-be in their own private aircraft to spend a couple of days alone up in the mountains, just making love and singing and looking at the stars and that sort of thing. Like, you can almost get like emotional whiplash at times because of the emotional and stylistic extremes contained within this movie. But if you can get on this movie's wavelength, I mean, I was just experiencing pure joy. I was smiling, I was laughing, and the character played by Ranvir, he says such like disgusting, depraved, but also incredibly humorous things. He's really preoccupied with his underwear and the thread count and how smooth and silky they are. And if anybody uses like the wrong detergent and messes up his underwear, he'll get rashes and he'll freak out. But like, and I apologize if I'm giving away spoilers, but I don't even know how to describe this movie or talk about this movie without giving away some spoilers. But like, there's this one giant battle scene where he's suffering from a rash ahead of time, and the only way he can go into battle is if the gun dealer that he's buying all these weapons from, he basically demands that he lend him his underwear so that he can go into battle, like, with all of his jumbly tumblers kind of compartmentalized and tucked away. And I was just absolutely cracking up, because it's the kind of dialogue you just never see in American movies, or very rarely see in American movies. And given the A rating for this movie in India, who knows, maybe this is kind of dialogue that you very rarely see in India as well. Like, as I've mentioned before, I know less than nothing about Indian cinema. I see the occasional movie here and there, but if I start like getting wind that there are more movies like Animal out there, I'm going to become the most fucking hardcore, fanatic Indian cinema fan imaginable, because this is one of those movies where it feels like for all 3 hours and 24 minutes of its total running time, and it's the shortest, fastest 3 hours and 24 minutes you have ever seen, but it feels like everybody involved with this movie, they're basically trying to deliver as much entertainment value per second as humanly possible. I got my money's worth 10 times over while watching this movie. I had so much goddamn fun watching it, because even though the movie is dealing with incredibly powerful and dangerous criminal figures and giant business tycoons and that sort of thing, what keeps the movie grounded is all the family drama, all the family dynamics, the relationship between the protagonist and his sisters, the relationship with his wife, the relationship with his father. All this stuff is absolutely fascinating, and these family members spend half the movie screaming at each other, slapping each other. There are probably more slaps in this movie than any movie that I've seen since some American flick from the early 70s. But what really sold me on this movie was the lead up to the intermission. And the intermission, I guess in India, maybe they actually do have a break where they clear the theater and let you go to the bathroom. Here in America, I saw the title card for intermission, and then it just went straight into the next scene. But the lead up to the intermission, it's the most epic battle scene I've seen on film all year. It's not as stylish or slick as something like John Wick Chapter 4, but it's so much more intense, it's so much more graphic, and it's so much more melodramatic and operatic. And they were just absolutely were scratching my sweet spot, where you have a hero who is basically, he cannot get killed unless he decides it's his time to die, where it's axe wounds, bullet wounds, just getting, basically fighting 200 people in these iron masks and just wreaking havoc. It was just absolutely fucking glorious. I would say it's as thrilling and as exciting as some of the racing scenes or some of the combat scenes in a movie like Mad Max Fury Road. But if I were to criticize this movie, any movie that's 3 hours and 24 minutes, obviously is going to have a little bit of dead space, or it's going to slow down here and there. But I didn't really mind the pacing. I guess my only real complaint would be the very end of the movie, not the climax, but the very end kind of let me down just a little bit, but totally minor. There is this, I haven't even gotten into the villain of the movie yet, but there's a villain who's kind of the equal and opposite number, or member of a rival family. They all descend from the same family tree, but due to it's bad blood between grandparents and great uncles and great aunts and that sort of thing. Many years back, the family's been kind of scattered around the world, and some of them are very resentful and some of them are very jealous, and so they're all fighting for this giant family fortune from this huge business that they run. And when the hero of the movie finally throws down with the kind of the main villain of the movie, good God, it is just absolutely fucking astonishing, because it's a fist fight, but it's filmed like a love scene. And Hitchcock used to say that if you're going to film a murder scene, film it like a love scene. And if you're going to film a love scene, film it like a murder scene. And obviously, he was just trying to be clever. And if you understand what Alfred Hitchcock means when he says something like that, then you're absolutely going to love this, because the climax, it's almost like a love affair between two brothers that are no longer on speaking terms, where they got to just absolutely battle it out for hours before they can finally either hug it out or kill each other, or whatever the case might be. But the song would be much more appropriate for two lovers getting it on, or two brothers having a reconciliation. But it made the scene all the more potent and all the more powerful. And I can't emphasize that word enough. This movie is potent. You'll never be bored. You'll never be checking your watch. You'll be why can't more Hollywood movies discover the wild, over-the-top joys of this kind of storytelling? I don't want this to be the only option. If this were the only option, we would all basically kind of feel overfed and overstuffed very, very quickly. But Jesus fucking Christ, it was easily one of the best experiences I've had at the movies all year. So thank you to whichever critic out there labeled it as misogynist. I was just kind of scanning a few headlines, and someone said, oh, it's misogynist. I was you know what? If critics are calling it misogynist, it's probably a good time with the movies. There's so many critics out there now where I just do the opposite of whatever they tell me to do, because I know they're overly sensitive, or don't like violence, or they don't like masculinity, or they don't like all the things that I like in movies. Sex, violence, all that stuff, humor. I need sex, humor, and violence in my movies, and there's a giant growing population out there that's you can't be funny, you can't be thrilling, you can't be sexy. I want my movies to taste like cardboard. Well, that's not me. So I loved Animal. I'm going to recommend that people see it. So let me know what you think down in the comments below, and let me know if you have any other recommendations on this front, because I am brand new, or not brand new, but very unfamiliar with most Indian cinema. But if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.